So I'm elated in welcoming you to Adam. Adam studied at Yosan, which is the University of Chinese Medicine in Los Angeles, California. And he shares his wisdom and techniques of traditional Chinese medicine in the western part of the world by performing acupuncture in Sedona, Arizona, and also by teaching his understandings of harmonic balance by accepting practices from Eastern medicine. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Tiffany. So great to be here with both of you. Yeah.
So we covered quite a number of topics last time. We got into the 5 elements, I believe. We got through those.
Well, I had a question that came up because the last time Adam and I spoke, we were really talking mostly about how each one of the 5 elements are related to our chi and our energy within our body. And we were discussing how it seems like the earth element is one of the most missing in society. So can we just go a little bit deeper into that, Adam, of like how the earth element, relates to us and our mental and our physical health, and how, understanding Eastern practice can help with balance?
Totally.
Adam, before you do that, I want to know what you guys are drinking since it's probably Wednesday.
I was waiting for that. I was like, ask what we're drinking?
I'm just having green tea. That's all. Just green tea for me.
Yeah. What do you have, Adam?
This is Tulsi and Gotu Kola tea.
Oh, I also have a green tea that's has a little bit of cinnamon and orange peel, so pretty tasty.
Just start with answering that question that Tiffany posed, and we had spoken about it because she'd asked me what I see mostly in my practice as far as like the primary imbalance that people are dealing with. And so I just said to her, it's the earth element. And, just to give an explanation about what that, because it's a multi-dimensional layered, the earth element has so many different dimensions to it. But basically for most people, we've lost our connection to the natural rhythms of the earth, and we've lost connection to the earth itself. And so this basically initiates a whole process within the body, specifically within the digestion, which basically initiates a stress response in the brain as well. When we're not connected to the earth and we're not connected to the food we're eating, basically what's happening is we're not getting the proper nutrients and we're not digesting our food properly. And so most of what I'm seeing these days in people is digestive disorders. People are having all types of the list of diseases is just it's autoimmune conditions are primary right now. Most people are dealing with some level of low infection or chronic fatigue, or they're really anxious and depressed and stressed out and can't seem to relax, and all this is stemming from the earth element imbalance. So
and can you figure out with TCM whether that is food based or whether it's stress or something?
Yeah, it's I do when I do a thorough intake with people, I'll find out what their diet is, and that generally would give me I'll get a basic idea of what people are ingesting, and then a lot of this type of imbalance, people are eating just way too much sugar in this day and age. I mean, processed foods and all the chemicals that we're exposed to through packaging and eating, So most people aren't really eating whole food. It depends on where you live. I mean, in Sedona, people are more health conscious, so there's more of that around. But most American cities, most people aren't really eating well, or they're eating on the run, and they're eating poor food combinations, or they're eating irregularly. All these can have an influence. Like, some people, they'll eat breakfast one day, they won't eat breakfast the next day, or they'll nibble throughout the day and then finally have a big meal like around 3:00, and they're changing all the time when they're eating. They're working all day. This really has a disruption in the earth element, and that creates all types of stress hormones. And then over time, this all compounds itself. So what I would say is first thing to look at in this type of situation is diet. And second is your relationship to stress and what your day is looking like as far as how you're going in throughout your day. The third influence is your relationships.
Really?
The earth element is all about your connection. It's all about how you relate through relationships. So if you're having a lot of challenges in your relationships, if you're in a challenging relationship or your work environment is stressful, or you're having issues with your kids all the time, there's just these all have an impact on the earth element. So when I say it's multi-dimensional, that's what I'm speaking to. And it's really about, fettering out through analysis and talking to people of what is the combination, which one is primary, or, addressing them all and starting to slowly implement changes there. And that kind of slowly over time will create an effect. Acupuncture obviously can really help. I can supplement the earth element, the spleen, stomach primary are the primary meridians involved. And depending on what the combination is there, if it's stomach or spleen or liver, and they're all usually kind of intermixed there. So then I can start to address that. And then I can also, really the emotional side for most people is huge. Most people aren't really dealing with their emotions very well. And that's something that, for a lot of people is something that I can help them with too, as just far as navigating effectively, specifically if they're having challenging relationship situation in their life. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
If there's anything more specific about that, I can go into it. If there's anything else that piqued your interest there.
I don't know. I guess how it relates for me is the one thing that comes to my mind instantly is like honey. When people start to eat honey from their local area, their body and their immune system, begins to boost up, and they just are overall just healthier, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what is another element that you see that most people kind of wouldn't be able to make? Like, say for instance, how does water come into play?
Well, that's I was going to go. It was like I was kind of going between, because the water element in Chinese medicine is related to the kidney, and alongside with the earth element and balance, what goes on is most people over time, most people these days, that are chronically stressed. It's just we've lost the natural connection and the busyness of the world, and our kind of, especially in America, the drive to create and manifest and build takes over. There's such an over focus on the yang side of things, or the more active side, and most people do not know how to rest and just relax. We've kind of lost that connection to the earth in that way of going with the natural rhythms. Like right now we're in winter, and most people are still doing the same things they would normally do in summertime, as far as the activity. And so there are these natural rhythms that we're losing connection to with each season. There's a natural rhythm. And so what happens over time, with this stress going on for a long time, the kidneys get taxed. So you've heard, I'm sure most people that are watching this have heard of adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion. And when there's a prolonged stress that's engaged over time, it just weakens the kidneys. So that ends up turning into insomnia, and people can't slow down. They can't shut off. They start getting chronic aches and pains all over their body. They'll have low back pain. They'll start having weakness. They can't motivate. They can't get things going. There's like a depression from not being able to actually get things done. So this is like the progression over time, what'll happen. So I do treat a lot of the kidney as well, as far as, because there is so much of this fatigue and just prolonged stress that's going on. So I generally will be dealing with a lot of that in my practice as well.
So with the water element, are you saying that we should drink more pure water? Is that Is that something that's...
Well, water in Chinese medicine is the actual fluid of water, but it's also connected to the deeper functions of our like endocrine system. So our deeper hormonal essence, like the part of us that's like the deepest layer of our physiology that rules our growth and our development, but also our ability to regenerate. Our ability to procreate, our ability to have like a strong sexual libido. This is all connected to the water element. So yes, water is very important, but some of the best ways to nourish the water element is just by stillness, is just by going into a more contemplative state, into a more reflective state, into a more restful state. And there's so many different ways to do that. I mean, but really, really honoring that slowness and the quality of going inward and resting and becoming still inside yourself. And there's so many different ways, again, to do that. But choosing one that you really resonate with, whether it be Tai Chi or yoga or sitting meditation or just even painting, journaling, all of these things have that quality of going inside. And with that going inside, there's a natural regenerative process that starts to happen. So, and that's what sleep is. Sleep is another very important aspect to this water element. Is getting to bed early, relatively early, with 10 o'clock at night, and getting a solid 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night really helps to regenerate this water element within. So.
There is something I'm curious about. You mentioned that there's a correlation between some of the elements and some of our organs. Is there also a correlation with the elements and some food? So what I'm getting at is there such a thing as a traditional Chinese medicine diet?
Yes.
Could you get into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, no problem. In Chinese medicine, the system it's set up, everything is based on energetics. So each one of the 5 elements has a specific color. For example, like the liver is connected to the color green, and water is connected to the color blue or black. The spleen is connected to yellow. The earth element is yellow. Fire is connected to red. Metal to white. So and they're also related to flavors. So the earth element is the sweet flavor, the water element is the salty flavor, the wood element is sour flavor. So when you look at all of that in context, the relationships of food, it's all based on energetics and these flavors. So really, part of this is when you're dealing with like an earth element imbalance, generally that's why I say most people are craving sweets. They're eating sugar to nourish themselves and to get energy, because the sweet element or the earth element does provide energy. So, but in Chinese medicine, that would be connected more towards like grains and beans, and also meat. Meat would also be considered sweet. And that helps nourish the foundation of energy within us, which is in that earth element. And then, depending on, let's say you have more of a metal element, I would recommend, depending on the situation, maybe a little bit more of pungent type food, a little bit of spice, and that opens up and ventilates the lungs. So if somebody's having a lot of chronic runny nose and allergies and things like this, adding a little bit of pungency is going to help strengthen and bring energy into the lung. So basically, it's very diverse how this can be looked at. Different systems within Chinese, or you could say like in the Japanese, they all have a little bit of variation within how this is utilized. But in a nutshell, for most people, it's best to implement all of these 5 flavors daily. Not only incorporate the different colors. So, you may have heard of the rainbow diet, or eating all the different spectrums of food colors because of the antioxidants, but these also target our organs. I mean, when you look at food, it's basically it's stored energy from light. What makes a food like be yellow is the reflection of that yellow, the pigment in there. And so that is actual light spectrum. So when we eat these foods, it's bringing that light into the organ itself and nourishing that organ through that spectrum. So the more we incorporate the rainbow of foods, as well as the 5 flavors: salty, sweet, pungent, sour, and I'm forgetting right now. Oh, and spicy. So all those, when we incorporate those foods, then we start to balance ourselves out. And depending on our system, like Enzo, you may have more of a need for your liver to move. So I would say add a little bit more sour food to your diet, add a little more green to your diet. This will help nourish the liver and move it so that it's functioning more effectively. So this would be dependent on what I found with, you and an intake. Then I would be able to address it with food, more specifically.
Very interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I definitely have to do some reading on that. I want to jump to something else. It sounds like TCM is a really good way to figure out what a client's issues are. I think it's actually very impressive. Are there any situations with your clients that you've ever had that perhaps TCM did not work to figure out what was wrong with it?
What I found mostly is that, like anything, it's a two-way street. Most people that come to me, they're dealing with more of a physical situation, and the emotional side for a lot of people is more challenging to deal with, to look at those emotional roots. Because I would say most every condition is rooted in an emotional, a high percentage, 70 to 80% or maybe 90% is rooted more in an emotional root. Yes, the physical and the diet is very important, but there's also the emotional side. And when things become more chronic and deeper in the body, it's generally underneath is more of an emotional root. And so where I found limited success is when people are not willing to deal with that emotional side of things, because of the emotional component that's involved. They don't want to go there. They're afraid to go there, or
they're not ready, maybe
not the right setting, or I'm not the right person to deal with that. So sometimes I will refer out to more of a psychological or somebody that deals more on that emotional level, that has more skill in that area to really uncover and deal with those emotional. I will also say that there can be more of a spiritual, karmic area that's dealt with. And where I found that is when people are doing everything that they can, but there's still not a change. And I've dealt with this myself, is when this is more of a karmic issue. It's more of a way higher long-term, like a much deeper set lesson. And it's taking more of like a lifetime worth or a longer period, because it's meant to be there as a function of learning, as a function of the soul's growth and evolution, which is that is something that I do see quite often. And that's something that it's more of like like I said, it's a deeper learning curve that's happening for that individual. And we all have that in our own way. So that's kind of where my vision and what I see in my practice as far as supporting people in that long-term growth and evolution, because Chinese medicine is really there as an evolutionary process. It is preventative, but it's on its deepest level. The Taoist and like the ancient way is how we evolve and how we move through life, and how we evolve and grow and transform through our life. And that's where Chinese medicine really, the roots of Chinese medicine really came from. It wasn't meant to treat physical disease. It was meant to treat how we move through life and evolve. So we all will have periods where we have sticking points and challenges. And acupuncture and Chinese medicine was developed to address how to move through that, how to evolve through those places, those blockages or challenging places within that we all encounter in our life. It's just a natural part of life. So how we move through that and how we choose to evolve through that is really, really essential in our evolution as a conscious being. In Chinese medicine, we're all given this like it's stored in our Jing, which is like we had talked earlier about the kidney, and the Jing is our deepest essence. It's given to us from our parents. It's our genetic blueprint that we're born into, and within that, we are all encoded. Within that is an encodement for our destiny, it's like a heavenly mandate. We're all given this mandate from heaven, and it's imprinted within us, and it governs our whole life. So, there's an idea of free will, and then heaven, what is there? Which one is it? Is it God's will or our own free will? Which one is ruling? And I would say it's a combination of both. In Chinese medicine, we're given this blueprint to evolve and also to shine, to share what we're here to do. And so part of also what in Chinese medicine is supporting people along that journey to manifest their highest calling, their highest, what they're here designed to help support the planet, the earth, and each other in manifesting. So that's another very deep layer to Chinese medicine that's not so much talked about, that I instill and want to support people in knowing about Chinese medicine, is that it can support that journey of unfoldment into your higher potential.
And I was just doing a little bit of research the other day, and I was reading up on how our DNA has something to do with, our blueprint in life. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. From the limited, I'm and this journey for me is something of discovery too, and I'm learning more and more about it each day, just through my own journey with it. But what I would say is, in reference to that, is we have this cycles we go through in our life, starting from when we're born, and then in Chinese medicine, there's this theory of 7-year cycles and 8-year cycles, depending on if you're a man or a woman. And so we're going through these cycles within us, and we're also, like I said, depending on when we're born, we have a specific, there's astrology that looks at the stars and then all their relationships to each other. Well, a lot of that is what imprints our DNA and imprints us from the time we're born. Also, the time we're conceived is also in Chinese medicine very much important. So again, it's like a clock, and it's ticking, and as we're moving through these cycles, different aspects of our DNA are starting to awaken and open, and we're opening up into them. And so this is a very natural thing. It's very, very natural. It's like nothing really we need to do about it. It's just because of the modern civilization, we've lost touch with those deeper levels of our being. We've lost touch with those deeper cycles, and we've lost touch with ourselves in a way of, I guess, our awareness of who we really truly are on the deepest of levels. And so what I'm seeing in myself, and what I'm seeing more on a basis now, I think just because of where we are on the planet right now, with how much strife there is and what's going on energetically, there's just such a massive wave of, I believe, in my experience, energy that's we're coming into a new evolutionary process as humans, in my experience. And so there's these initiations that are happening for some people where we're embodying and start to experience higher levels of consciousness, and we're starting to become more in touch with our true self, of it's being reflected kind of in movies these days, like X-Men and all these like superhero movies, and people evolving and having these superpowers. It's like I feel like that's what's happening, and this is really who we are. Is like, and the more we get in touch with, in my experience, we have to go inward and experience the deeper levels of suffering that we've carried through our lineages, through our ancestral line. If we're not getting in touch with that and allowing that suffering and that energy to transmute through just our conscious awareness, nothing more than that, just becoming aware of our level of suffering, naturally our DNA starts to release and starts to let go of that old material, and the real underneath, like what's there, the potential of our DNA that's within each one of us is so unique, starts to come up. It's like the phoenix starts to rise through the ashes. But in order to go there, we have to go down into that cavern of the cycles of pain that we've been living in, and specifically our ancestors. And my experience with that is the best way to really get in touch with that is through your relationships in your life, and how you relate to your own level of suffering. And that's usually through your relationships. Most people, that's how you get in touch with your suffering, is through your relationships. So the more we get in touch with that suffering and are honoring to that, and we allow that to move through us, then there's this natural rising of frequency and evolution. So that's my own personal experience. And this is what I try to share and teach with my patients as well.
I love the fact that, as you were saying, we're all evolving, we're awakening. There's different levels of consciousness happening for people. And I think TCM is just that kind of modality to help us, to give us a little lever into that state.
Exactly.
It's like it's time, you know?
It's all based on, when we have energy that's blocked within us, which is pain, to help unblock that. And acupuncture is just a very natural way, because these meridians they're just currents of energy, and they get blocked by so many different factors. I mean, trauma, poor food choices, stress, all these things. And just opening those channels up, things start to unravel. It's just like I said, this is all based on nature. Nature, there's no reservation. There's no resistance and blockage in nature. Nature just is always just going freely, and we are that same thing. It's just unblocking those places where we're stuck, and that's where the precision of acupuncture can really get in and start to open those areas up. And it's just one way to do it. There's so much. And
we're all so connected. So when certain parts of the population or what have you are at a certain level, they can catapult the rest of us. Like they can be, like you were saying, it's nature. It's just going to do its own thing anyway. Everything affects everything.
Exactly. I do have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Adam DeViro, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's Adam DeViro. And then I have a website, which is Sedona Acupuncture, all one word, .com. It's Sedona, and then there's 2 A's there, and they're back to back. There's a couple, because there's a couple Sedona Acupuncture websites. So it's Sedona Acupuncture, all one word, with both A's in there. So you can find me there, and that has my email address there. You can contact my email, which is adamdeviro@gmail.com. So yeah. And one just closing thing I would say is, for people is that are watching this, is the most important thing you do is keep it simple. Really, the best way to really, if you're looking for any kind of emotional healing or even physical healing, is connect to nature, and just as much as you can connect to the vibration and resonance to the earth. Get outside and just get your feet on the ground, go to the beach, wherever you live, and just spend time in nature. And that's where you learn, and your body starts to imprint that, and it becomes something, because this is something we tend to over intellectualize, and we're looking for things to help to heal and regenerate ourselves. So just connect to nature. So simple.
Well, guys, we're running out of time quickly, so I just wanted to thank you so much, Adam and Tiffany, for doing this.
Thank you
both.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.